MegaPodTastic. Good morning, MegaPodlings. It's Krazy Joe. And look who I got with me. I don't know what side you're on. I haven't seen the final edit yet. There? I don't know. It's it's Heath from Serial at Midnight.
What's up, Krazy Joe? Thanks for having me to talk about this interesting topic we're about to dive into.
Yes, well, I had you for a very specific reason. When I read this, you were the first person I thought of because a couple months ago, you and I did a video where we picked our top films of 2019, top five,
Yes.
and your number one film I had not seen at the time. I had not seen it. I have since seen it. I really like it, and it was Ready or Not, the horror film Ready or Not, which is now on Blu-ray, DVD. I don't know, wherever you get your movies.
Is it on VHS? That's my
I,
question.
I don't think
It
it's on
probably
VHS.
is.
It's probably on a VHS somewhere because I'm sure somebody put it on VHS. I'm sure there's some quirky guy who goes out and buys like every Blu-ray and then dubs them down to VHS. Like,
Yeah,
I don't know. I bet that guy's out there.
I'm sure. Oh, 100%.
And if
Yeah.
you're that guy, please comment down below because we want to hear from you. That's a video right there. I want to hear your story. So anyway, but I've since seen it. Well, the news came out last week that Spyglass Entertainment picked up. This is going back a little ways. Spyglass Entertainment picked up the rights to the Scream film franchise because, let me let you know a little secret. The Weinstein Company is they're not really like around anymore for reasons. I'm not going to get into the reasons why, but the Weinstein Company's not really a thing anymore. So Scream, which was a property they owned, has been purchased by Spyglass Entertainment. And it just got announced last week there is going to be a Scream 5, and the reason I thought of you right off the bat is because the two guys who directed Ready or Not, and watch me butcher their names now,
Yeah, for real.
Matt Bettinelli-Olpin and Tyler Gillett are
I think
going
that's
to,
right.
yeah, they're going to direct Scream 5. So I thought of you. I thought
Hmm.
I wanted to hear your take on this. And as we got chatting a little, I found we had some different takes on the Scream franchise. So I thought that's a video right there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so glad you did. It's so funny because you messaged me and you were like, "What do you think about the Scream 5 news?" And I was like, "What Scream 5 news?" And I was like, "Hold on." So I had to go check it out. And I think I texted you. I was like, "Wow." It took him like I was like, how do I feel about this? I don't know how I feel about this. So that's kind of like this is going to be an interesting conversation because I think you're right. I think we maybe have some very different opinions. I don't know, not very different. I'm not like a well. I'll let you I'll let you continue.
Well, I think yeah, I'm a big fan of the Scream franchise. I love the out of four Scream movies, I love three of them. There's
So that
one that
that
I'm
begs
not
the
so
question.
crazy about. Yeah.
Which
There's
one?
one. Um, so yeah, that is actually so where I stand on Scream 5 is I'm a little bit I'm a little bit of mixed feelings here because these guys are they did a terrific job with Ready or Not. I
Mhm.
loved it. So I'm a little excited to hear they're doing Scream 5. That gets me kind of psyched. But there's also a part of me that's kind of disappointed that Kevin Williamson isn't making Scream 5 because I personally, if you asked me, I would have said Kevin Williamson should write and direct Scream 5 because he's directed before. He did Teaching Mrs. Tingle,
Yeah.
and he wrote 3 out of 4 Scream movies. It's kind of his baby, I think. You know, him and Wes Craven obviously made these movies together, but Wes Craven's no longer with us. So to me, the natural person to succeed him in the director's chair is Kevin Williamson, who created the series and is um, an accredited director now. So I thought he was the guy. Also, in 2011, when Scream 4 came out, it was described as the first chapter of the second Scream trilogy, and Williamson said he knew where Scream 5 and 6 were going to go. Well, we never got them, so I kind of view Scream 4 as an incomplete trilogy, and I want to see where that trilogy was intended to go. And it sounds like that's not going to happen now. We're going to get some new
Hmm.
guys coming in, and they're going to have a completely different take on it. So Scream 4 kind of feels like it's got a bit of an incompleteness about it. So
So let me ask you this though: do you know, you're following this a lot more closely than I am? Do you know if Kevin Williamson wanted to return for a Scream 5? Did he want to write it? Did he want to direct it?
I don't know. That is a
Okay.
really good question because I read an interview or a quote from him where he said, "No, if there's a Scream 5, I won't be doing it." I don't know if that meant lack of interest or you know, Hollywood's very political. If
Hmm.
someone gets removed from a project, they're not necessarily going to badmouth the producers because they still
Right.
want to get hired in the future.
Right.
So, what went on behind the scenes? I don't know. But I hear he's probably going to be getting an executive producer credit on Scream
Yeah.
5. But other than that, that's about all. He's going to. It's the only way he's going to be really attached to this. Now, we talked about this on my last podcast. J2H from the J2H YouTube channel and I discussed it. He has predicted. My prediction was, I said, knowing how Hollywood is now, especially looking at the there's a thing I call the fake reboot. It's like you kind of market it like it's a reboot, but it's actually a sequel. A
Hmm.
good example of this is Flatliners. There was the Flatliners where it's like it's marketed. We're not calling it Flatliners 2. We're not calling it
Yeah.
Return of the Flat. It's just Flatliners. But you got Kiefer Sutherland in there, and he's playing the same character he played in the original. So it's actually a sequel. Same thing with Shaft, the
Hmm.
recent Shaft movie. Same thing with Halloween 2018.
Yeah.
So my prediction is whatever this Scream 5 is, I bet it's called just Scream. I bet they try to market it as a reboot, but Nev
Hmm.
Campbell comes back playing the same character.
I think that's a safe bet. I actually heard when this was reported. I saw it on something, and they did say it's the Scream reboot, and that's just the wording. Now I've seen that it's Scream 5, and I've seen that it's the Scream reboot. I think both of those things are true, as you're saying. I think that it's going to be one of these things where it's a soft reboot where it allows them to continue the Scream franchise, the brand, but it also brings in the new blood, which I thought that's what they were kind of trying to do with Scream 4. To your point, wasn't that kind of supposed to be a passing of the torch sort of a thing?
It kind of was, I think, and I guess it didn't work because the movie was not a hit.
Yeah.
From what I understand, it made a profit. Like it didn't fall flat on its face. It wasn't like a box office embarrassment for the studio, but
Hmm.
by no means was it a hit.
Right.
So there never was really any fire behind the studio to get number 5 rolling. I should also point out J2H has predicted that the title for the new one will be Screams with an S on the end, but the S will be stylized to resemble a 5.
I can see it. That's a good. That's a yeah. I can see it. That's probably right. It probably is. If it had been the third one, it would be SC3. No, SCR3AM.
I think they did do that with the third one. Hang
Did
on a
they?
second. Let me see if I can
Okay.
find the
See,
logo.
it's been.
Oh, no,
I
I
I
guess they
thought.
didn't. Yeah,
Okay.
I guess I'm probably mistaken on that, but I thought they did. Well, let's talk about your opinion of the Scream movies because I found that you and I have a very different take on these movies.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us how you feel about the Scream movies, and then
I mean, okay. So I like the first one. I think the first one is the best one, and that's the one that we go back to the most. I guess the one we've seen the most. That's the one that I credit with being so revolutionary as far as like the postmodern horror movie. That's a commentary on how horror movies work. It kind of lets you in on the secret as you strip to your bare chest. Uh,
yeah, no,
but I like we have all of them. We have Scream 1 through 4. I haven't seen and I haven't watched the TV series, so that's a separate thing for me.
yeah,
But I don't, and I remember bits and pieces of 2 and 3. Like I remember them, but I just don't find them to be. I don't go back to them. I'm not that interested in returning to them. And when we watched Scream, the first Scream, this past Halloween, which I guess was like 6 months ago now as we record this video. But when we watched Scream again, I was just like, I don't know. Like, it doesn't feel, it's lost a lot of its charm for me over the years. I don't think it's aged well. As far as it feels so, it's so of its time, and maybe not enough time has passed for me as the viewer to watch it in the same way that I watch like A Nightmare on Elm Street, because of course that movie is also very much of its time. But I find it harder to watch the Scream movie, maybe because I was of the Scream generation, you know. But I definitely don't love them. Yeah, I think that's what it comes down to, is I don't love them. I think the first one is good, and I think the other three are they're fine. I don't dislike them. They're just
Now you see, my favorite of all four is Scream 2. I love Scream 2. In fact, I've always said I think the greatest scene, one scene in the movie, I think it's the best thing Wes Craven's, in terms of skill as a director, I think it's the best work he's ever done. And it's the scene, I don't know how well you remember Scream 2, but it's the scene where she is, Nev Campbell is doing a play, and she wants to drop out of the play because, there's a killer on the loose and blah, blah, blah. And she goes to David Werner. David Werner's her drama teacher, says, I want to drop out. He talks her out of it. And then we get a scene of her rehearsing the play. And it's like a dress rehearsal, and they're on stage. And they're wearing Greek masks, like the tragedy and comedy masks. They're wearing those like very theatrical Greek masks. And she keeps seeing the killer, but he's not really there. It's all in her head, and it's just quick shots of him, and then back to the actors, and it's just done so well. I really think it's the best thing he's ever directed, Wes Craven. So that's my favorite scene of any Wes Craven movie, actually, and it's certainly my favorite scene in any of the Scream movies. Also, and I should say we're going to have spoilers here. These Scream movies are, especially the older ones, we're over 20 years. So if you haven't seen them, maybe you want to turn off the video. I don't know, but it has been over 20 years.
If you haven't seen them, why are you watching this video about Scream 5?
Exactly. But I thought Scream 2, the reveal of the killer, I thought was the best of all of them too, because one thing the Scream franchise really, really did was play homage to what came before in the horror genre. And I loved the twist of the killer in part 2 was the mother of the killer in part 1, because I'm like, they just took Friday the 13th and turned it on its ear. This is the reverse of Friday the 13th. And I thought that was so brilliant, because I'm like, oh my God, that's genius. I never would have thought of that. It never would have occurred to me, like, hey, let's take this thing. Because, a lot of people look at Friday the 13th and they're like, they love Jason. Jason's the one they love. Nobody's like, I love Friday the 13th. Mrs. Voorhees is the best. You never hear that. So,
I have a Pamela Voorhees tattoo. No, I'm just kidding.
So I thought everything about that. I love Scream 2 so much. The original is my second favorite.
Okay.
Then we get to Scream 3. The only movie in the franchise that Kevin Williamson didn't write the screenplay for. Aaron Kruger, who wrote some wonderful, wonderful Transformers movies, that's real sarcasm there, was the screenwriter because Kevin Williamson was busy teaching Mrs. Tingle. And I think Scream 3 just doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. I mean, there's a moment here and there, like it's not a complete train wreck, but I don't like it. And I thought Scream 4 basically redeemed the franchise. It was like, because each one has a thing where the first one is, these are the rules for surviving a horror movie. Then the second one is, these are the rules of the sequel. And the third one is, but what if you're dealing with a trilogy? These are the rules of the trilogy. And then the fourth one which came out right when Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street and Texas Chainsaw Massacre and all these classics were being rebooted. Scream
Mm-hmm.
4 was the one that dealt with the rules of a reboot. And I thought, this is timely. At the time of Scream 3, the big horror reboot wasn't a thing. So who would have thought of that? And I'm like, this is timely. It also, I'm going to give a spoiler for the end of Scream 4. It's the only Scream movie where the killer doesn't die at the end. The killer survives Scream 4, and nobody knows she was the killer because I don't know. I really liked it.
Because they wanted to set up the rest of the trilogy.
Exactly.
Probably.
Exactly. I thought like that was such a clever twist because it was something we'd never seen before in this series.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, now we've got a killer who could actually come back, which we've never done before. So that's my take. If I were saying, best to worst, I'm going 2-1-4-3.
Okay. At some point I'll have to revisit them again. There's a larger conversation to be had here just about franchise movies and when do you it's crazy because of course you look at Friday the 13th and you look at Halloween. I love these franchises. I love these movies. I don't know that I want Scream to become Friday the 13th or Halloween where we have a dozen or more, where this goes, so Halloween, perfect example. I love the Halloween franchise. There's some really bad entries in there that you accept because you love Halloween, but it went away. And then there's the Rob Zombie ones, and then it went away for a while, and it cooled off. And then they're like, guys, they're thinking about making another Halloween, and John Carpenter's going to be involved. And then it's like, well, that could be good. And then it comes out, and it is good, but then they're like, okay, it was a success, so we're gonna do 2 more after that, and it becomes exhausting to a point. And there's a conversation I want to have with you about this, where like, okay, so these guys come from independent movies, and now they've got this Scream gig. Like, good for them. Like, it is good for them, but congratulations, you're in the big leagues now. You've sold your soul to a franchise. You know what I mean?
There's also there's a real risk that comes with that. Because, like Scream 4, which I got right here, Scream 4, I know most Scream fans really liked this movie. Like the hardcore fans of the franchise thought this, especially after Scream 3, this was kind of like, oh, good, they made one that doesn't suck this time. But it didn't really perform well. So that begs the question, we know these guys are talented, but what if there's just no interest in Scream anymore? And what if these guys come out and do something and just knock it out of the park? A perfect Scream 5, but nobody goes to see it.
Mm-hmm.
Does that hurt their career? Does that they're hot right now off Ready or Not, and people really liked that movie, and do they they always say you're only as good as your last movie. Like, well, did they derail themselves by linking themselves to a franchise that the audience just doesn't care about anymore?
That's a real question. I mean, that's the, what is it, the $10,000 question, or was it yeah? I don't know, man, because it's true. These days, your hits versus miss ratio is more skewed than ever, and it doesn't matter how many hits you've got. If you've got one miss, I notice, I see directors that I like, and they come up through, like the independent system, and then they achieve this hit, and then they get the big movie, the blockbuster, the franchise movie, or whatever. And if it doesn't perform, it's like they go to movie jail. You used to get 2 or 3 failures before you would go to movie jail. Now it feels like people get sent to movie jail immediately if something fails to perform. But I don't know. I'm sure they're getting a good payday out of it. It's working within the studio system, which I'm sure, and that's always a double-edged sword. But no, you're right. And then again, now that I'm thinking this through, and I'm like, but isn't that the goal of a filmmaker? Is like, you've made your independence. Now you want to make a studio picture, you want to do the one that's, so it's just, I'm just very conflicted about it. And they probably are too. We can't ask them, but I assume they probably are too. It's a good career move, but there is that risk.
I would say the time is probably right though, because we're in an era right now where these kind of things, um, the audience seems to be hungry for it. Whether it's I don't know whether it's Halloween
Yeah.
or Star Wars or I don't know what else. These things
But
that we
if
loved
something
once.
doesn't go well, the audience will they will pitch you. They'll have a
Yeah,
meltdown,
oh,
and then
exactly.
there's that whole thing. So I don't know. There's that risk you're talking about again. It's like, what if the fans don't like it? Then you've got a whole other thing. Reshoot Scream 5. Remake Scream 5.
Exactly. That's the other thing. The other question I have is, and I had this before. It's not like this
Yeah.
is a new question. I've been wondering this for years. But where do you go with Scream? Because,
Hmm.
like I said, each film had its thing. The first one was these are the rules of the horror movie, these are the rules of the sequel, these are the rules of the trilogy. And then I kind of thought, well, you're done. There's really nowhere to go now. But then the reboots kind of started, and then they're like, we're going to do the rules of a reboot, which wasn't a thing when Scream 3 came out. So it's like, okay, you did have somewhere to go. But where does Scream 5 go? What is the next thing? And I don't know the answer. Uh, which is another reason I kind of wish Kevin Williamson was behind it, because Kevin Williamson clearly had a vision, because he envisioned 4, 5, and 6 being a trilogy. So he had a trajectory he intended to take these. So I don't know. I'm really confused.
I'm wondering if it's just going to be a better version of Scream 4 or a newer version. So I'm on IMDb, and this is the little encapsulation review, not review, but the premise of Scream 4. 10 years have passed, and Sidney Prescott, who has put herself back together thanks in part to her writing, is visited by Ghostface. Okay, Scream 5. The premise is a new installment of the Scream horror franchise following a woman returning to her hometown, trying to find out who's been committing a series of vicious crimes. Kind of sounds like the same movie, just with a little bit of a mystery angle. It's been 10 years since the last one. So again, the last Scream 4, it's been 10 years. Scream 5, it's been 10 years. I don't know. Just diminishing returns, Joe. That's what I'm worried about. I'm just worried that we're milking these things. Scream does not immediately no pun intended, but it doesn't seem to be a like, okay, Jason, they were able to get some mileage out of him because he's like a zombie, basically. He's immortal. You can't really kill him. Michael Myers, zombie. Freddy, he's in your head. These are all going to be like fair play mysteries, right? It has to be. And so if you're
Yeah,
having a fair play mystery, you've got to, it's almost like, it's like a new, every one of them's got to be like a new dinner theater murder. You got to find another killer to introduce.
I
I don't
think
know.
I just found the way we make it interesting. What if they bring in Benoit Blanc to solve the mystery?
Oh, now that's. Could you imagine a crossover? Screams out.
I'm in. I'm in
I
for
do
that.
too.
You've sold the ticket right there, so
Now you
I would go
see,
see that.
the killer is under the ghost face mask, and if we take it off, we can see that he's a donut within a donut. Yeah, that'd be amazing.
Oh yeah, no, I'm on board for that.
I don't know, but what do you
So,
think? I mean, diminishing returns. Are you worried about that? Do you see diminishing returns?
well, I do. Like, I didn't think they should have made a Scream 4.
Yeah.
I was not interested in a Scream 4 until I saw Scream 4. I mean, let's face it. When you're a fan of something, even if you think it's a bad idea, you're going to go see it because you're a fan, right? Like it's just the way it is. Like, they make another. I could see a trailer for the new. I'm a huge Star Trek fan. I love Star Trek. If you show me a trailer for a Star Trek movie and it looks horrible, I'm still going to be there opening day. That's just the way it's going to be. So I didn't think Scream 4 was a good idea, but I was there opening weekend, and I was like, oh no, you turned me around. You sold me. I like this movie. Um, which gave me faith for 5 and 6 then, because I'm like, okay, this was designed as a trilogy. Let's see where this is going. You clearly you knew better than I did, because I didn't think you were going to get a 4 out of this. But yeah, I think they're there is only so far you can go because it becomes Scooby Doo.
Hmm?
Let's see who this really is. It's
Yeah.
so and so, It's like it's just pull the mask off, and Scream. One of the problems I think Scream had is it created so many imitators
Hmm.
that that became a thing too. Like I remember when I Know What You Did Last Summer came out. I heard a conversation between two people. I was working in a supermarket at the time. And I heard two people having a conversation about I Know What You Did Last Summer. They went to see it. And it was being billed as from the people who brought you Scream, or from the man who wrote Scream, because Kevin Williamson wrote the script for I Know What You Did Last Summer. So they kept billing it as from the maker of Scream. So I heard people talking in a supermarket having a conversation, and they thought I Know What You Did Last Summer was the sequel to Scream. They
Oh
went to
wow.
see it thinking that was Scream 2. And they're like, well, the killer didn't wear the ghost face in this one. He wore like a rain slicker. And like they actually, because of
That's
the marketing
frustrating.
from the maker of Scream. So in a way, you're kind of competing with your imitators too,
Yeah.
because if people don't know any better, uh, you get those and I often think, like we're film geeks. Like we
Yeah.
know a lot about movies, but I often think the people who don't take it as seriously as we do get easily confused.
Hmm.
And it's not because they're stupid. Like it's not like they're dumb rubes. They just don't care as much as we do. So they're not following it as closely. Like I've heard
Right.
people say like, well, if you don't get it, they must be stupid if they don't. No, it's not that. They don't care as much. Like I saw Batman Begins in the theater, and the guy in front of me, when Joe Chill was on trial, someone said, "That's the Joker." Because they knew the '89 movie, the
Yeah.
Joker was the one that killed his parents. They didn't know any better. It's like it's not they're not dummies. They just don't know. So I think that is a problem you run into, is that you're not only diminishing returns with yourself but with your competitors too.
So let me ask you this. You just brought something up that I hadn't thought about before, and I don't think that it would go this way. But these guys did so. I don't want to spoil Ready or Not for people that haven't seen it, but there is a supernatural element to Ready or Not. Have you seen the third I Know What You Did Last Summer movie?
I didn't, but I heard about it.
They go supernatural.
I've
They
heard.
okay.
Yeah.
What if Scream went supernatural? Would you be into that, or is it
From
just
what
too
I
far,
under,
too much?
Well, from what I understand, Scream has already gone supernatural if we take the TV series into account.
Oh,
Because
okay.
I only watched about 3 or 4 episodes of the TV series, and I hated it, so I just kind of bailed. But from what I understand,
Hashtag not my Scream.
but unlike some fans, I wasn't like you're not a real Scream fan if you like the Scream TV series. God bless you. It's just not for me. It's like
Yeah.
enjoy what you like. That's fine. But from
That's
what
the
I understand,
anthology show, right? Isn't it a like a
I think it's like I don't know. I'm
we
not
sound like a
sure.
couple old farts, man. There's people who are there's like because it was MTV. Did it come on MTV?
MTV, yeah, I do think it had the same characters both seasons, but I
Okay.
would imagine it was a different killer in each season.
Yeah.
I don't know.
See,
I didn't make it
it
through
traps
season
again
one.
with the mystery of who done it aspect of it.
Right. So I don't know. I await Scream 5 to see what I'll tell you, I wasn't crazy about Halloween
Oh, really? The
2018.
new one, the rebooted
Well,
slash the
my problem is the alternate timelines,
yeah.
because there are now what, 7 timelines in the Halloween franchise. Like
It's a bunch.
Halloween 1 happened in all of them. So all of them we have Halloween 1. But
Yeah.
sometimes it goes Halloween 1, 2, 4, 5. Sometimes it goes Halloween 1, 2, 6, 7, or 7. I don't know. You know what I mean? It's like you've got the series that goes to Curse of Michael Myers. Then you got
Mhm.
the one that branches off at 2 and does the alternate timeline thing and goes into H2O next.
Yeah.
Then you've got the timeline that starts with Rob Zombie's film, so the original doesn't count. Then we're back to the original, but now 2 doesn't count. And I
I
was
feel
just like,
dizzy.
yeah, it's like One thing I did like in Terminator, or not, I was gonna say Terminator's the other one that did that. But one thing I did like in Halloween 2018 was they show someone playing a Back to the Future Part 2 pinball game. And
Oh,
I'm
I didn't
like,
notice that.
I thought that was a great Easter egg because they
Yeah.
literally were doing the divergent timelines that Doc put on the board.
Yeah.
And so I thought, oh, that's pretty funny. They know.
At least Terminator's built on time travel and like going back to change things and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know. We've just reached a point with some of these, and that's kind of what I'm saying. Is like I'm just really I'm entering a period. I'm not entering. I've been here for a while. I've got franchise fatigue for a lot of this stuff, and what I loved about Ready or Not is I've never seen Ready or Not before I saw that movie. Like they invented something, and I'm not eager to see people just rehashing another franchise. Like I don't want to be the old man who's just like, hey, get off my line. I don't want to be Clint Eastwood and Gran Torino. But these guys haven't VHS. They're the guys behind the VHS. Well, they directed segments from VHS, the movie. Like everything they've ever done has been this original, independent kind of a thing. And then Ready or Not was like this culmination of like, guys, look what we can do. We've got a little bit of a budget. We've got studio distribution. And now the fifth movie in a franchise. I'm burned out on it. I'm ready for new things, you know?
I hear you, but here's the question.
Okay.
Knowing who's behind it, Scream 5 opens. Let's say we're, 6 weeks from now or something. You get the word, oh, Scream 5's opening at the theater. Are you there?
Yeah, I'll go see. I will absolutely support those guys. I'm just saying. I will also go support the independent movies that, like, I saw Ready or Not in the theater. I want to support original voices as well. And to your point, we should also say this movie is in pre-production. There is not a script yet. This is only, it only exists on paper. Like nothing has been done for this movie, so it may actually not even happen. But
that's true.
But it could, and if it does, this is what we think.
Well, I want to thank you for being here today. I appreciate you having the conversation. And anyone who's not subscribed to Serial at Midnight, get with the program. Go click subscribe. You should be watching. Link down below. And it's always a fun conversation when you're here.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you for inviting me. This was fun because there's two different opinions, two different takes. It's what makes the world go round, baby. Thanks again.
Exactly. All right, everyone, keep wearing those pajamas.
Keep wearing those pajamas with the plastic feet. Keep wearing those pajamas. Tell everyone you meet. Keep wearing those pajamas with the back door flap. Keep wearing those pajamas. Don't open, it's a trap. Oh no, it's a trap. Some people call them PJs, some people call them jammies. They can come embroidered with big money and no whammies. They can have 100 tiny commander Adamas, but no matter how they look, just keep on wearing those pajamas. Keep on wearing those pajamas. Keep wearing those pajamas. And now we're having fun. Keep wearing those pajamas. And now the song is done.